Good evening, everyone. I am glad to be introducing Ms. Meha Jayaswal in today's GMEX session. She is the Associate Dean, School of Contemporary Media, and has over 26 years of experience in the fashion and media industry. She started her career with India's leading stock market magazine of the 90s, Dayal Street Investment Journal, and then moved on to International Wool Secretariat, which were the owners of the Wool Mark, as a trade communications executive, India and Southeast Asia, and then to Confederation of Indian Industry Headquarters, New Delhi, before joining Pearl Academy in 2001. She is net qualified mass communication graduate and is trained in advanced fashion journalism from London College of Fashion, UK. And she has accumulated rich experience of curriculum, research, planning, and pedagogy. Her professional highlights include managing media and trade communications for International Wool Secretariat, Confederation of Indian Industry, and forging close linkages with India's leading media houses for Pearl Academy. She has completed her postgraduate certification in higher education from Nottingham Trent University, UK, as a third topper. And now she shares her knowledge and experience with students and faculty members of fashion, media, journalism, and entertainment photography courses as the Associate Dean. And I'm really happy to have introduced her with her incredible panel that she has chosen for today's session. I wish her all the best and thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Manisha. Thank you. Yes, so friends, welcome to this panel for the future of fashion communication. And thank you to GCEC for this initiative. It's a 75-day conference, as you all know. It has been a very interesting start, and now we are almost coming to the close of these 75 days. So today is the 73rd day for the conference. Friends, fashion is a very dynamic and interesting field, which is constantly evolving. It impacts us, it impacts culture, people, art, and the entire ecosystem that we live in. So whether we talk about beauty or home decor, music, crafts, tourism, accessories, it all encapsulates this. So on one hand, while we talk about fashion itself as a communication, the way we dress, style ourselves, which is a channel of communication through which we express and we communicate our identity to others. But on the other hand, there is fashion communication, which is how we communicate fashion across media channels. So this is a domain that integrates fashion journalism, styling, fashion PR, advertising, fashion shows, social media, trend forecasting, creative direction, fashion photography, fashion films, visual merchandising, and so much more. It's a very exciting domain, and it makes it a truly multidisciplinary. So friends, today let's understand from our panelists how fashion trends, imagery, and digital platforms amplify fashion communication. Let me introduce you to our esteemed panelists for today. I'll give you a detailed introduction when they come as a speaker here, but let me introduce you just by names right now. Our session chair today is Ashish Seni. Ashish, hi.
Good evening, everyone.
Yeah. Our eminent fashion media educator for the day is Asmita Agarwal. Hi, Asmita. Our research scholar and special speaker is Aparna Muddi. Hi.
Hi, everybody. Good evening.
Our corporate speaker for the evening is Shruti.
Hi, everyone.
And friends, let me introduce you to our chief guest for this evening, Sarita Karandikar. Sarita, a very warm welcome to you.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much. And I'm really looking forward to this session.
So Sarita has a career spanning 30 plus years as an entrepreneur in women's wear, theatre stylist, costumer for children's theatre, an academic in the area of fashion styling, image design. Then she moved on to becoming a quality assurance manager in product imaging for Amazon Global. Yeah, that's what Sarita is for all of us. And Sarita Sarita has worked for Amazon and then for as a creative consultant for Pantaloons. She's a creative director, an international fashion consultant, and a maverick. Sarita, over to you today for the session, and she is going to share with us her insights that she has actually got from her experience and the context of fashion communication, because it's how fashion brands communicate their identity, values, and purpose through different domains. Sarita is a design graduate and is also a postgraduate certificate in higher education from Nottingham Trent University. Sarita, welcome, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Neha. Those were very kind words. Yeah. So, to begin with, I'd like to say, of course, a warm welcome to everyone. And I think it's very exciting what we're here to discuss today. This whole new and not so new, I would say, because it's fairly recent that we have moved into this space of digital, online. But we have, since time immemorial, I think, been communicating through our, the way we dress, the way we wear our clothes, and it's really about a reflection of this whole societal breakdown through the years that conveys a lot about that communicates a lot about us through clothing and fashion. Fashion is different for different people at different levels. The interpretation to I'm fashionable has so many different meanings. I mean, I could be trendy and I'm fashionable. I could stick my neck out and be a different dresser. I'm fashionable. I could, start creating trends, and therefore I'm this trendsetter, fashionable, who's willing to do things differently. But it's all also about image and identity, like Neha mentioned in her conversation earlier. It's about how we want to be seen versus how we are seen by others. It's about how we portray ourselves and versus how others across interpret, our look and our facade. So where does fashion communication fit in? I mean, because that's really the key objective here. Fashion communication really is about conveying messages. It's about conveying, through fashion, nonverbal clues, but it's about attracting consumers. It's about making a brand visible. It's about giving brand its identity, right? This could be in the retail space, large format. It could be small boutique. It could be individual. So we have different approaches, but through all this, the common factor is how we are communicating and what do we have to say. Now, I have, in my experience, been on both sides of the platform. I've been an entrepreneur. I have created design. I have been a consumer. I have been in the e-commerce space as we moved into large online formats. So I think what's really, really important is to understand where as a consumer am I sitting on that radar? Am I a conscious consumer? Today's new buzzword, especially post-COVID, is sustainability. Everybody's talking. And many years ago, and I'm really talking eons ago, when you said, I'm a fashion designer, very many people laughed at us and said, you mean a glorified darzi? And not understanding the rationale, the importance, the real meaning of what design does. Today, sustainability is becoming one such word. It's so easily said. Oh, hum to sustainable hai. Big formats have small capsule collections, and they have ticked the green sustainable box by saying, oh, we are a sustainable brand. Then on the other hand, there are smaller brands as well who are into upcycling, recycling. We've seen them in India today also. They are brands that are growing and growing at a rapid pace, which is great. I mean, you have brands like Doodlage today, and Meha was happy to say that she's a girl who's from Pearl, and I've had the great opportunity to mentor her, and today she's doing well. There are so many others. There's Kishmish Clothing, and there are artisanal brands, social media, and again, I'm connecting the dot back to fashion communication. Your media has finally made this possible to bring them in the forefront. Brands that were unknown today are known and are doing well. Today, you'd feel I don't need a brick and mortar store because I'm selling through Instagram. So there is fashion communication again. So where am I sitting on that radar as a consumer? Am I conscious? Am I buying the Zara clothes? Am I buying fast fashion? Am I buying sustainable fashion? Or mindful fashion is actually what I call it, more than slow and sustainable, because you're making a conscious decision. So am I a trendy consumer or am I a conscious consumer? That, it's the next level, really. It's the next phase of how I buy or how I want to be seen. Then is it also fashionable to be seen as a sustainable consumer today? Or am I seriously mindful about how I dress, about how I buy? But it's the in thing to be sustainable. So I'm buying those clothes. So all these factors, about there is a brand called Freitag. It's a Swiss brand. And that really makes bags and even apparel from tarpaulins, from the truck tarpaulins. There's another brand that makes accessories from billboard hoardings. And so what is it giving me? And there is closer home, there is a Gucci collaboration brand called I Was a Sari. All these brands are making unique, one of a kind of pieces. Therefore, as a consumer, what does it do for me? It's giving me exclusivity. It's making me tick the boxes of being mindful as I consume. It's giving me that sense of being on that radar of being fashionable as I consume mindfully. So in all this whole gamut of thing comes in the fashion communicator, who needs to address, who needs to make visible the right kind of brands, who needs to make the consumer aware of what it is to be a fast fashion consumer, or to be sustainable fashion consumer, to be a conscious consumer. The idea really is about helping people across to make informed decisions for consumption and to take ownership for those decisions. Media today, they say can make you or break you. Today, Instagram, how many followers do you have? I mean, years ago, when I taught design, I was worried that a lot of new keen learners looked at fashion as, is it, or design as, it is a thumbs up or is it a thumbs down? We worried about things like that as academicians, design academicians especially, that's not the way to look at design. And now is the phase of communication. While it may not be, I mean, people are saying, how many followers do you have? What do I have to say? Is this edited? Is this real? It raises so many questions of, am I going to get what I see eventually? So it is the role of now in today's, as we go forward, for the fashion community to give the real picture, to make people conscious about it is okay if you are making a choice to go in for fast fashion, but you have to be conscious about it. You have to know what you are doing. It'll be great if you're a conscious consumer and you go towards mindful fashion. You could be exclusive. It allows you to be trendy and stay on top of the game. But it's a choice that you as a consumer have to make. And that awareness will come from the right kind of communication that fashion communicators will make, whether it is through video films, through print, through social media platforms, and what have you. And I'll actually sum it up with, we always said, first impression is the last impression. And we were also taught never judge a book by its cover. So, there are two sides to everything. And it's which path you choose to take, and take ownership of that decision, of that path you have chosen. And again, that's where fashion communication is so important, to show you the way, to show you what choices lie ahead of you and for you to take. Yeah. I hope, Neha, I have set the tone for our conversation, and over to you. Thank you so much, and open to taking questions if at all.
Sarita, thank you so much. In fact, last night when we were having a conversation about, I learned so much. It was so much that I did not know, Sarita. Yesterday night when we were chatting, I got to know what are things you are doing. And to our panelists, co-panelists here, and audience who's listening to us, Sarita is now based in Goa. She has had a very hectic life in Delhi, a very fast moving life in Mumbai. She's been with Amazon, she's worked with Pantaloons, she was content head for Pantaloons. But today she chooses what she wants to do. She has made a choice to, and she's now in Goa. She is settled there with her husband and choosing projects that she wants to do, which she enjoys to do. Sarita, it was real lovely to listen to you. And last night, as I said, that so many thought-provoking things you shared with me, and I'm also questioning, what am I doing? What do we need to do in life? Thanks, Sarita.
Thank you, Neha. Thank you.
And I'll reserve many questions for the end. So let me
Sure.
now invite our session chair, that's Ashish Seni. Ashish, he is an alumnus of NIFT, and his experience spans over 20 years. He has worked in areas of clothing design and fashion communication. As a member of faculty at School of Contemporary Media at Pearl Academy, he teaches film and cultural studies, fashion films and cultural studies. He has participated in curriculum design, pedagogy, and working on several projects, international lab and live industry projects for students. He is right now actually working on next generation pedagogy for alternate reality, getting metaverse and NFTs into curriculum. He's a traveler and loves going to remote parts of India to document people and places through his photography. Today in his talk, our session chair Ashish, he would share how fashion films have emerged and how these have played a very important role for fashion brands, and how in last 2 years it has grown multifold. Ashish, welcome and over to you.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for introducing me once again. When people come to me and ask me as to what I do, I tell them that I'm a fashion communicator. And they basically ask me as to what fashion communication is. I explain it to them in whatever words I can. And then they say, okay, so this is not something that I'm affected by, or this is not something that involves me. And I tell them only one thing. Only a person, a tribal in Papua New Guinea who has got no connection to media or internet could only be the person who's not affected by fashion communication. I ask them one thing. Are you on the social media? Are you on Facebook, Instagram? They say yes. I said, then you're consuming fashion communication every day of your life, every second of your life. You may not know how close we are to you. You are part and parcel of fashion communication. Which brings me to another very interesting aspect, which all of us basically experience on everyday basis, which is Instagram Reels. Now, basically, how did Instagram Reels start? And this is a journey, it's a backward journey of trying to understand what exactly are fashion films and how did they basically start and why is it important right now. Now, when I try to explain it to people about what fashion films is all about, they basically confuse between two things. One is fashion in films versus fashion films. So they say, yes, I've seen Veer Zara, I've seen Joda Akbar, I've seen Chanel. So I tell them, no, please don't confuse fashion in films versus fashion films as a different genre of films. Comedy is a genre, horror is a genre, fashion films is a genre. We have seen films like Narrative blow up. This is Michael Antonioni, or Devil Wears Prada, which is a more popular film which a lot of people have seen. Now, a lot of people think that Devil Wears Prada is a film about fashion. No, it's just a story. It could have been any other industry. They have taken fashion, okay, that's the base. There are other documentaries like the September issue, Bill Cunningham. There are lots and lots of films. But these films have got fashion in them. They per se are not fashion films. So how did fashion films start? It started with you. It started with me. Basically, what happened was, till I think 10 or 15 years ago, communication more or less from advertisers, from fashion brands used to be only one-way communication. You could have television commercial, you could have billboard, you could have magazine advertisement, any of these. And what used to happen is that it is only the creative part of the person who is the originator, basically the person who's making this advertisement. They used to speak to the consumers. The consumers never had an opportunity to reply back. Then suddenly happens in the 1990 and cable television happens. This happens during the Gulf War. And suddenly you have got huge amount of channels all over the world. You have got some 100 odd channels. Okay. Then what happens is that somewhere around in the 90s, the internet starts and people start searching on different aspects of life, and they start basically trying to communicate, and yet the fashion designers are still not able to hear what the consumer has to say. 15 years ago, we got something called smartphone. Now, this is where the spread of new media basically starts and everything becomes very, very democratic. Whatever the fashion brands or advertisers wanted to say, they said, but they started getting a feedback, they started getting replies. And what that led to is what Sarita has just mentioned. How many followers do you have? You can troll something and make or break a brand. You can break a personality, you can make a personality. And that's when people realize, the brands realize, the labels realize that no, it cannot be one-way communication that someone is just going to consume it without replying back. And you could not make television commercials anymore. You could not make television commercials which is one-way communication. And if you have seen any teenager, the one thing which is very distinct about Instagram is scroll up. If you don't like it, scroll up. Unlike the billboard, unlike a television advertisement which is going to come on the television, you cannot scroll up. You'll have to watch the entire advertisement. But Instagram or Facebook, you don't like it, scroll it up. And suddenly the brands found that they had very, very little time, extremely little time to speak with consumers. And that's when this, instead of making television commercials the traditional way, they started making fashion films. Studios like the Nick Knight studio started approximately 22 years ago. And the whole idea of what a fashion film is, what the brand is saying is that, listen, I'm going to try to entertain you in a small manner. Please have a look at this. If you like it, have a look at it. Maybe you will purchase the product. The product in itself is not something which is the king or the queen of the advertisement. And so fashion film is that genre of films which has got entertainment, which has got something which the consumers want. It has got a product or label, but very, very subtly. It is not on the face. Basically, there are different kinds of and types of fashion films which people are basically writing about. Fashion films per se is not something which is new. They have got popular right now, but it is not something which is new. The first fashion film was actually made somewhere around 1967, which we qualify as fashion film, with Peggy Moffat as the model for Rudy Gurnish, the designer. This is 1967. People did make a lot of hobby films, but fashion films became famous in the last 5 years, 10 years as a different genre. But basically, if we keep aside the debate and the discussion about when it started, etc., what kinds, because there are different versions, we still haven't figured out exactly what is it that we can label as fashion film and what is it that we cannot. We are still grappling with it. But more or less, there are three kinds of fashion films, and let me try to show you all the three. The first is a promotional film. Now, I'm going to show you three very, very short 1-minute film. These are made by students. I specifically wanted all of you to see what the students have made. Now, what you're going to see is that there is some kind of a story. There's some kind of an entertainment happening here. But the product itself is not on your face. The film is not saying, buy me. The film is only saying, please get entertained. So let's have a look at the first film.
Ashish, we can't see the film.
It's the PPT.
Okay.
You have to reshare, I think. You'll just have to reshare.
Yeah. I hope you can see the screen now.
Yes, we can.
So the models are just trying to find out something. This is shot in Chandni Chowk, and this is something which is outdoor. This is actually a promotional film. It is promoting a certain kind of fashion. Now let me show you something which is of pure entertainment value. Which brings us to the final question before I hand it over to the next speaker. Are fashion films of any value? I've entertained you a bit. Okay, I've told you a bit of promotion. Now, these are the kind of films that young people, the teenagers, the people who have got a lot of buying power may like to see. If they don't like it, they'll just scroll it up. And there goes your millions of dollars. So the question is it of some value around the world? The answer is yes. 15, 20 years ago, you had film festivals of different kinds, which used to have, there were documentary film festivals. We have got Venice, we have got Berlin, we have got Cannes, and we have got Rotterdam Film Festival, we have got Busan, we have got all kinds of film festival. There were no fashion film festivals. And now we have got huge amount of festivals which just cater to fashion. And people from all over the world come just to display these abstract, experimental, creative ideas. And people are getting recognized because this is some place which is in between. It has got a story. You can talk to consumers about it. You can sell products. You can experiment. You can be abstract. You can entertain people. And you can make Instagram reels. You can put it on Instagram. You can put it on Snapchat. You can put it on Facebook. You name it. TikTok, although it's not available in India right now, but in one way, if you take the music part out, TikTok in the end is nothing but entertainment. Huge amount of videos on TikTok is nothing but entertainment. And by the way, people in rural Indias have got more followers on YouTube, on Instagram than perhaps many celebrities and socialites. So before I hand over to the next person, I would want you to see a film which is gaining traction for the last 4 or 5 years. This experiment, this fashion film was made by one of our students. She is a grad and has won many awards in prestigious fashion film festivals. So this film is called Namaste, and this is by Priyanka Sarkar. Let me share with you, after which so here is what a fashion film is. This is what the young people are doing.
Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky. I humbly bow down to the true you that's inside this body, the true essence of your Atma, your true self. I bow down and I honor that. And as I look at you, I see that true you through your eyes, into your soul, and I let you see me. It's Namaste.
Thank you. And over to you, Neha.
Thank you so much, Ashish. Thank you. It was entertaining, and yes, indeed, fashion films have become a fiercely growing career opportunity for our young fashion communication graduates, and like so many that you just showed us. Okay, so now, on behalf of our chief guest Sarita Karandikar and the Global Media Educators Council, I take this opportunity to introduce our eminent fashion media educator for the day, Asmita Agarwal. Are you here, Asmita?
Hi, Neha.
Hi. So Asmita, in her career spanning 30 years, Asmita has worked as a fashion features editor with HD City, Cosmopolitan, Asian Age, and editor-in-chief of L'Officiel magazine. She was the founding editor who launched indigenous bridal magazine, Bridal Asia. She also relaunched Patriot newspaper. She's written a book with the country's biggest law firm, Anand & Anand, which was recently launched at the Jaipur Lit Fest. And she's also the official blogger and content head for Fashion Design Council of India. So besides her editorial and industry assignments, Asmita has been teaching fashion journalism for last 11 years at Nift and Pearl Academy. So today, on behalf of Global Media Educators Council. They would like to acknowledge. So could I please request for the video to be played? Hi, Monshri, if someone could please play the video.
Yes, ma'am.
To everyone here, let me share that. Okay, they have started screen sharing, so I'll. Thank you so much. Thank you and congratulations, Asmita. Congratulations on behalf of our chief guest and on behalf of President and Secretary of Global Media Educators Council. They wanted to acknowledge your contributions to this domain. Thank you so much for mentoring students for that many years. Could I please request you to share your experience as a prolific fashion writer to, I don't know if I can say a patient and a structured academic? Asmita, over to you.
Thank you, Maya. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So I'd like to thank the Global Media Education Council. Thank you very much for this honor. I'm very grateful. So I don't have a prepared speech, everyone. I'm just going to speak from my experiences. You know, when I started 30 years ago, I was a graduate and I'd studied English honors. So of course I loved reading. My father was the editor of Economic Times. I mean, he worked in news editor of Economic Times, and he worked for 30 years in Economic Times. And he told me that you're going to do fashion. So what is fashion? And my mother taught literature. So they were completely shocked when I told them that, you know, I want to write on fashion and fashion interests me, because there was no fashion in 1992 when I started. There was no Cosmopolitan. There was no HT City. There was no Delhi Times. There were no magazines. I mean, everything came in 1998 and 1999. I mean, we launched HT City in 1997, if I'm not mistaken. So there was no concept of fashion or fashion communication. Forget communication, there was no fashion. So I think the most important thing that I learned was, which is missing in today's generation, is actually going out and getting a story, speaking to people, like what I always say, primary information in Pearl. You know, I tell students, you must speak to people, you must get their point of view. That's what makes a story interesting. That's what makes a story important. And that's what I learned, you know. And I, fortunately or unfortunately, never went to any design school or any fashion school. I learned everything on my own. And I learned everything, reading, writing. I had tough editors, very tough editors. I read HT City for almost 13 years, HT for 13 years. And I went on to work with Mr. Akbar. He was launching a new paper called The Asian Age. I took a massive salary cut, and I thought, at least I'll get to learn something from Mr. Akbar, and he was a fantastic writer. So I learned the nuances of writing from Mr. Akbar for 8 years. I launched Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai, Bangalore, different editions with him for many years, for 8 years. And that was a really, really interesting experience for me. And I'd always done newspapers. So I thought, I've had enough of newspapers and I should please now get an experience of magazines. So I joined Cosmopolitan, which was certainly not the kind of magazine I wanted to do, but I also made it Cosmopolitan, which is CAUSC. And I did a lot of cause-related stories there. So that was an interesting part of learning the ropes of a magazine. And then I went on to do Harper's Bazaar for a bit and then relaunched L'Officiel, which is a 100-year-old iconic fashion magazine, French fashion magazine, one of the last surviving fashion magazines. And in over 30 years, I think what is really interesting is how I still don't understand social media. I'm not on any social media. And I think the virtues of reading and writing is what I tell children, that if you read, you don't need to be on social media. You'll know more than people who are on social media, and you will have credible information because you're reading NYT, you're reading Independent or Guardian or New Yorker or long form reading and writing. So I think whatever I teach at Pearl or whatever I've learned is that you have to be a reader to be a writer. I mean, they both go hand in hand. They're not separate identities. And then I was listening to Ashish. It's always a pleasure to listen to Ashish because he comes with this treasure of knowledge, and he makes it so simple, unlike me. Whenever I listen to Ashish, I wish I could have that austerity in thought, which Ashish always has. And he said something very interesting. He said that, and he showed young people's films. And, I mean, when I saw that film, it was young people's experiences. And he said, fashion is not divorced from what we see around us. It's not an island. It's socio-economic, cultural impacts, fashion. And that's what I tell students, that fashion is not an isolated identity. It's not an island in itself, right? It is related to what we see around us. So please write how you observe. And if you observe, you'll be a fantastic writer. Unfortunately, what I think missing is when I teach students is the desire, if I can put it like this, to read. Most of their information comes from Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. And I think long form writing has, to a large extent, been buried. And they'll say, oh, Asmita ma'am, I said, have you read that book? They said, oh, Asmita ma'am, is there a YouTube tutorial on it? I mean, has the book been made into a film? Can we watch the film? I said, no, read the book. Yeah, but it's easier to watch the film. So I feel that there's a bit of a disconnect between the younger generation and my generation, where we were always taught that please read, don't watch a film, because that'd be adulterated, but read the book. So, I mean, bringing back reading into fashion communication has been the biggest challenge and the most interesting part for me also. And, I also observe from my peers like Ashish and Aparna, and how they beautifully interact with children, how they manage to get the best out of children, how they encourage children. I've seen Neha encouraging children all the time, and I wish that I had her patience, like she said. So I think that the most important part about digitalization of fashion and digitalization of magazine is losing the flavor of newsprint. The whole idea of picking up a magazine, losing the smell, the flavors of picking up a book with its dog ears, finding a rose petal here and there, which I used to keep in all the books that I used to read. I think that's what's missing in today's generation. And this extreme dependence of social media has kind of changed the way we look at fashion, changed the way we look at content, changed the way that, you are understanding content. So I think, like I always feel there's always a rise and there's always a fall. So this whole thing of digitalization will soon, I mean, it won't go, but I think that, there will be a time when we will love newsprint. There will be a time when we'll go back to traditional forms of content writing. There will be a time when we will respect pure content like what the New Yorker does. I know they write 5,000 word stories, but I still read those 5,000 words. And I tell students, if you don't read 5,000 words, please read 500 words from it, but at least start reading. So, so in my journey of 30 years, I feel that from then to now, there's been a massive change. There's been a change to a more aggressive use of social media. There's been less reading, but there's also been a rise of alternate magazines. I don't. Unlike my last fabulous speaker, Ashish, I don't have any nice PPT and a nice film to show. But all I can say is that what I find missing and what I'd like to see more of in fashion communication or in content is more pure content, is more unadulterated content which is based on observation, content which is based on how we see things. Like when I ask children to review a fashion show, for example, I tell them, please don't Google it, because Google has spoiled everything. I tell them, please don't Google, please write from what you observe. Do not, first thing they will do is, Amit Agarwal show. I said, no, let's not Google, let's write from purely what we see and how we soak in things. So in many ways, I think what has become comfortable has also made me extremely uncomfortable. Is this Googleization of content, Googleization of everything that we write. So, but there will be a time, I'm an optimist, where I feel that, content will be pure, it will be written from thought, it will be written from experience, it will be written from emotion, because that I feel is real content. So once again, thank you everyone for listening to me so patiently. Thank you everyone for honoring me. I hope that this honor will enable me to be a better educator, will enable me to be more grateful, to be more structured, as Neha said, and to be more patient over and above everything. Thank you. Thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you.
Congratulations, Asmita. And yes, always it's lovely to listen to your journey and what you share with students and what you share with each one of us, Thank you. So, friends, now I have the privilege to introduce our researcher and a special speaker of the evening today, Aparna Muddi. Aparna, yes, she's our department lead for North Zone at Pearl Academy. She is a NIFT alumna and she started her career by teaching fashion production in the social sector. And then later on, she moved on to write in fashion and lifestyle publications. She had her stint with some of the biggest names in media industry, like Z Media, India Today Group. Then she moved on to becoming a blogger, covering major fashion and lifestyle events and collaborating with some top-known brands also for her blog. She's worked as an academic for the last 5 years and she's teaching fashion communication and media to students, and specifically her forte is digital media. She teaches for digital media, digital journalism, and how this world has become interconnected with this. So today her talk is all about how digital transformation has impacted fashion, how the way we are communicating, how it is impacting our lives, how we think and collaborate. So it's the fashion communication that constantly influences and impacts users and consumers. So her session today, over to you, Aparna.
Thank you so much, Meha, for that wonderful introduction. I think आपने ज़्यादा तारीफ कर दी मेरी.
I just see that they have started screen sharing, but I can't see the screen. Can someone see the screen?
No, I can't either.
Okay. Could I request if it could be shared again, maybe? Okay, is it visible now? But at least I
Not,
can't see.
not to me.
Okay, all right,
Not
fine.
yet, Neha.
Let's start, Aparna. I think you have a, I mean, much more than the screen. You're going to talk. You are going to be talking about the small screens and how it is impacting. So over to you, Aparna.
So after actually Ashish and Asmita and Miss Sarita, I'm actually a little nervous, to be honest, because they have actually spoken so much about what is happening, what has happened, and how have things changed. And especially, Asmita is right. Like, the long form content is the pure content that, like, we have grown up with, and what we have learned, and how beautifully things were presented together. I mean, with the visionary, somebody like Asmita, who has always led. I mean, I've seen her work with students. I've seen how she directs a particular idea into a fully blown opinion with information. That's something that definitely is missing in the digital world. But I think slowly, even in the digital space, that's the long form content has become a great idea to go for, when especially when you want to understand fashion. So I think one of the biggest things that digital media has done, and I'm not just talking about social media, I'm just talking about the digital world itself, the world of internet itself, has connected people very well. So while we used to have this trickle down, all the trends used to trickle down. So first they used to come to, say, Europe, then to America, then they would come to India, or they would go from Japan to Europe to again America to India. So we would be kind of on the receiving end of fashion trends. So recently I was looking at a student's trend reading of the 90s, and I realized that so much of the trends of the 90s of India were actually the 80s of America. So it's so interesting to see how that has changed now. So the kind of trend that you see in India right now is probably almost the same. The trickle down has actually become much faster. And the other thing that has happened with digital media is the trickle up, in the sense how trends are actually traveling from bottom upwards. So even when we're looking at fashion forecasting is taking a huge amount of data, not from the streets, or not from the just social or cultural behavior, or even the short term forecasting is not happening just on events or micro events. Most of the macro forecasting is happening with AI and data that has been mined from social media. One of the reasons being that social media and digital media has allowed us to express ourselves. And that has been a big change, that it is not just fashion magazines that are setting, or celebrity culture in India that is setting the trend in India. It is also us. We are actually, like, people, consumers. I'm talking about us as consumers. We are consumers are actually also taking the trends and making it their own, and they are also pushing it upwards. So one of those biggest changes, I think COVID has also actually taught that to the world. Like, they've drilled it. COVID has drilled this into the heads of people, because with TikTok, like Ashish actually said, and I thought it was a great observation, that TikTok, the way it has democratized content, because the villagers have actually got this beautiful content that thousands and millions of people are following. I actually was recently looking at some trends of casual shirts, and I realized that there are two truck drivers from Andhra Pradesh who are actually micro influencers. They have about 25,000 to 30,000 followers, and they have been collaborating with a brand, with a fast fashion brand, who have given them shirts, and that can be bought online. And I was so fascinated by that here are two truck drivers who do literally nothing but play Bollywood songs on their and they make those TikTok kind of videos on Instagram reels, and they are influencers. And that's so fantastic, that it's not just like a size 4, size 2 models anymore. I'm sorry, I was about to say size 8, and I realized what a big mistake that is. A size 4 model, or a size 2 model, or even a size 0 model, who's supposed to be the ideal anymore. It can be people like me, it can be older people, it can be younger people, it can be people with skin issues, darker people. And it has democratized it so much that people are actually going for the normal, because we used to always idealize these celebrities. So that is, I think, a big change that digital world has brought in. It started out with influencers, but then everybody became an influencer. So you don't know who to follow, so you're just following everybody. You're just making it up on you as you go. So initially, I was actually reading a very interesting research paper about this. This research paper was published in 2021 about the impact of social media on the diversity of data mining, impact of social media and the diversity of mining with artificial intelligence for fashion forecasting for 2035. And they are talking about not just consumer behavior, which used to be one of the first data points in any kind of fashion forecasting. Now they're actually talking about individual buying patterns also. And not only individual buying patterns, they were also talking about micro buying patterns in, say, tier 3 cities in India. They were talking about China. This particular research paper was talking about China. And they were talking about micro buying patterns of even, say, wine and how that affects fashion. And of course, we have studied, and this is of course something that, like, anybody who has studied fashion understands this, that fashion is not, like Asmita put it, it's not an island. Gets affected by political, cultural, economical changes in the world. So the technology, the advent of digital technology, and especially the way it has, how porous it is and into individual lives, and how it actually affects your behaviors and how it affects your buying patterns, all that has actually changed the way even fashion trends and fashion forecasts work. And that, I think, is a big impact. And the digital impact is not about just content creation. It is also about how content is then analyzed, because the content creation is no longer at the hands of fashion journalists. Okay, it's no longer at the hands of just influencers, because everybody can now be an influencer. Even micro influencers, like even with a minimal follower of 500 people, can be influencers now. They can actually influence you into how to buy. In fact, there was this actually I was reading, and I was also talking about it in class, and we were talking about NFTs and blockchains, and how the students who are now, they are also trying to sell jewelry, etc., and they are designing jewelry. So a couple of the students from my class recently, I'm talking about a month ago, they said that, ma'am, I think we are going to all invest into NFTs and Bitcoins. And I was like, you do realize they are two separate things. Like, ma'am, it's okay. We will figure that out and we'll teach you how to do it. Because I sometimes illustrate. So they were literally suggesting that they will teach me how to sell my digital art for NFTs. And that's so amazing, because, when I was in college, it was always, oh my God, my teacher knows everything and I know nothing. Main haath jodti hu, main sab kuch only samjhungi. And I'm going to really learn and try to grab everything. But somehow that exchange has actually become two ways now. And in a way, it's a good thing, I think, because pedagogy has also changed. The teaching patterns have changed. The way technology is used for information has changed. I mean, yes, Google is sometimes very, very annoying, because the minute you say a word, nobody wants to remember anything. They only want to Google. But at the same time, it also means that for a person like me, it's easier to find Yoji Yamamoto rather than spending 3 days in the library just to look for that designer and their history and their influence on the fashion culture of the world. So this makes a big difference. The digital space makes a big difference, because the information is available to all. Where media educators come into the picture, and especially I think people like us, we come to the picture, is actually analyzing that information. How do you analyze that information, process that information, and then disseminate the information? That becomes an essential part of fashion media learning. And it is not just fashion media learning, I think, because fashion now can be defined. It is not just clothing anymore, right? Because fashion can be defined as a lifestyle, as in anything that you buy, including your mobile phone, from the color of the mobile phone to the touch screen icons that are made. That is all now a part of your lifestyle and part of your fashion. It kind of defines who you are, the kind of icons you use. Rose gold color phone hai ki pink color phone hai ki this bright blue, it kind of defines your identity. The kind of stickers you will use on that, like literally stickers that you use on that, kind of talk about your identity and kind of talk about your self-expression. The digital space has provided space for everybody and anybody to express. And that does make a difference, because while we were looking at trends, that, okay, this trend is popular, it's trending, only when we saw it was sort of a privileged way of looking at it, because we were only seeing the rich and the well-to-do consume that fashion, and we were clicking them and we were analyzing only them. We were not looking at the lower economic strata of the society. Here we are, where the lower economic strata of the society is actually pushing that upon us. So COVID, when athleisure actually took over, athleisure as a trend, when it took over and people started wearing it, it was not just celebrities who were doing it. Everybody was doing it simultaneously at the same time. It did not trickle down. It did not take time for celebrities to first wear athleisure and go out into the public, and then for all the consumers to do it. It just happened simultaneously. It was just that socio-cultural impact that happened absolutely together, and that does make a difference. I think the fact that sustainability or inclusivity or all these other let's call it woke thoughts kind of have come together, and everybody has started understanding this, and everybody has started trying to be inclusive, more gender, they have tried to understand gender or sexuality, or they have tried to incorporate sustainability in their lives, however minimal, however on the surface level. They are getting all this information from the internet, and they will not get it elsewhere. They might this many people will not even buy fashion magazines. So which does make a difference, and brands have realized that. I think that is the biggest thing that has happened in the last 6 or 7 years, not before that. Brands have realized the power of the people in the way they are reaching out to the people. I mean, I did not ever think that Amit Agarwal, forget Amit Agarwal, even international brands, they would actually show a behind the scenes of how a dress is made on their social media. I mean, I don't think any of us who have studied fashion, even in the early 2000s, ever thought that we will ever be able to see a high profile designer put on sequins on their dress and say, oh, that's how they do it. They would never do it before this. And now they have started to, because they know that the people want to pay the money where they feel that it is their money's worth. I feel that a lot of people used to do it before just because it was a name or just because they could afford it. But now a lot of people would invest in something expensive because they know how much work, thought, and everything has gone into that. And brands have started showing that. And that has become very important. I think I have spoken too much already. Thank you so much. I mean, I think digital space is why we are also talking today. And we have been able to come together, all of us. And I think so many people are able to stream this on YouTube. We have a YouTube live session that's going on also. And we have some attendees also who are attending this. I think the digital space is very interesting in impacting the culture and lifestyle and fashion. And it is here to stay with the star conditions apply, that people are going back to long form and reading. I mean, I think educators like Asmita, they are there who are still pushing students to do the long form reading, to understand and set the context of what kind of information and the amount of information that they're getting from the net. Thank you so much.
Aparna, thank you. I mean, it was like a capsule of information, fast forward, like a 2-hour class, fast forward in a 10-minute session. But amazing. I mean, we had so much information that you shared, what students have researched and what you as a scholar, you have been sharing this information with all of us here. Thank you. So our next speaker today is a corporate speaker, is someone from the corporate world, Shruti. Shruti, hi. She has close to 15 years experience in creating brand stories, which are an essential part of fashion communication graduate. She's been a creative lead for visual merchandising with brands like Max, Van Heusen, and many others. She has been extensively featured and awarded by the VMRD magazine. For everyone to understand here that visual merchandising plays a very important role in brand communication, how a brand arouses interest, how in-store interest, how it aids product differentiation, and how it persuades a purchase intention. And auditors, visual auditors like Sarita, our chief guest, they are the ones who look at how brand is communicating digitally in visual merchant through their windows in visual merchandising, and they are the ones who look at it whether it has a consistent brand image and communication or no. Not going to steal the show here. It is over to you, Shruti.
Thanks, Neha. Hi, all of you. I think I hope I'm audible. So I think Neha has given a little bit of purview into what I would be talking about. Yeah, I think I fell in love with visual merchandising almost like 9 or 8 years back. Before that, I was with design, but I fell in love with it, and I continue to like it even today. I think I am probably doing my 40th or my 50th window as of now, but I never get bored of it. I think that's the nice part about visual merchandising. So I think very often than not, people ask me this question that, what is visual merchandising? Is it just a window display? Is it just the display of clothes inside the store? And actually, the good part is it is about a lot more than just that. Every day is action-packed for a visual merchandiser. The role of a visual merchandiser is something that keeps you going, keeps you on your feet. You will get tired, but you don't have the time to rest, and then you keep going on and on. I think that's the beauty of it, and it also gives you a lot of avenues to explore. Like sometimes people tell me I'm a graphic designer, I'm a stylist, I'm probably an installation designer. The good thing about a visual merchandiser is in a day, you do the graphic designer's role, you do the installation designer's role, you do the engineer's role, you do the architect's role. So you pretty much have your hands in everything. So you never really get bored. Okay, so I'm just going to share something that I have put together very, very quickly. I hope it's visible. Yeah.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think I will call the role a multitasker. I think every day is multitasking. And one of my favorite imageries to show this to people to define the role is this. So this is something that a visual merchandiser does every single day of her life. I think whether you're in the creative role, whether you're doing the execution of your window, whether you are sitting with the marketing team and figuring out how to ensure that what ad film they've made can be a part of the store's look and feel, every bit of it is something that the visual merchandiser definitely touches upon. Okay, and when I say defining the brand, obviously already has decided its identity. The fashion designer has decided their collection. So what does this visual merchandiser actually define? They need to think of the hero of the plot. They need to think about the customer. What are they going to do for this customer who's going to walk through a mall which has probably 100 brands showcasing different things? You might have the same t-shirt in every brand. How do you look different? Okay, so you need to define that for them. Plan it much ahead of time. I'm not going to be there in every store as a visual merchandiser to tell that story, but I need to make sure the story is being told the same way, whether it is globally or whether it is just in India. So the planning aspect is a huge aspect of it. So sometimes I think they also play the role of a financial person, because they're given this budget and they need to make sure all through the year it is dhamaka in the store, right? So I think from that aspect, they need to make sure they do their creative bit, they plan their budgets. And I'm going back to the GIF because that's what we do through the day. Designing, I think a huge aspect of it, the fashion designer is already done. But now to talk to your customer, tell the story to the customer in a way that it is relatable and not in a way that it is Greek and Latin to him is very, very important. Now, creating, that's why I said the engineer and the architect's role, because when we design, fortunately or unfortunately, what keeps playing at the background is, how is this window going to be rolled out in 600 stores? Is it going to be possible? is the guy in Chennai going to see the same window in Delhi? Okay, and it's very, very important that he sees the same window. Will the person who's going to make this window understand it in Delhi and in Chennai to give me the same output? And will the customer, say tomorrow, travels to Delhi for a vacation, will he feel like, am I seeing Van Heusen or am I seeing Max? I don't understand. So very, very important that that has to happen. Marketing, although I think very often they're not, there are these arguments that marketing team is like, why are you marketing it? No, at the brick and mortar store, whatever said and done, however good the ad film is, we are the guys who are actually marketing it for the brand in the brick and mortar store. And for a customer earlier, it was just a static window display or a setup which is just merchandise well displayed. But today I think the customers become so demanding that they definitely expect a lot more from whether it is your display, whether they're walking through the store, is it navigation friendly, is the window engaging. All of this is something that you have to think at the marketing stage. Analysis, I don't know if you've noticed, but you would have these people who just keep sitting and observing the customers who keep walking around every now and then. Okay, those are the people who are visual merchandisers, to just check how are people reacting to this window. Unfortunately, a space that is yet to be quantitatively measured. And as a result, it's very important when the business happens, the operations bit takes a little credit, marketing takes a huge credit, and everybody takes, then whatever is left of it is what the visual merchandiser takes. So it's very important that the visual merchandiser analyzes, understands, and justifies why they feel what they feel. Regular surveys, regular audits, very, very important to understand what the hero of the story is actually feeling about the brand. Whether it's products, whether it's services, you're custom making a garment, everything has to be going through all of these processes to make it successful. Something that I often tell people is the storyteller. Okay, the storyteller, Van Heusen is a single brand, Max is a single brand. Okay, the story keeps changing. The hero stays the same, the customer. But when the hero looks at the display, he needs to feel like he is having that nice glass of wine next to the pool. Whether he aspires to be that or whether he relates to that, both of it is important, right? So we get the customers in with the help of that. The wedding window, every year when the wedding window gets rolled out, they'll say, कुछ अलग चाहिए, कुछ मजा नहीं आ रहा है. So what happens is the wedding stays the same, the story stays the same because you have the same bangalas, you have the suits, maybe a few color variants that do definitely happen, but you need to tell the story differently. Why? Because the customer wants something different. He doesn't want to see the same gold bow every year in a wedding window, right? So overall, I think the customer has actually changed the direction of visual merchandising from seeing it as a certain way to now actually demanding you did the same thing last year as well. I just showed you two different windows just for you to understand this was year one and this was year two. And although we tried and I think Van Heusen is challenging from that front because they use only black, whites, and neutral tonalities. To introduce them to a color is a challenging task. But I think this particular window kind of really did well across South, across North. People could relate to it really, really well. Again, the storytelling part. Now, the same customer in spring or in summer needs to see something else. This was for a travel window, and the customer needs to feel like he's going to travel. And again, it is not about direct storytelling anymore. One is the restriction of space. A window display has a very small space in which you can play, but you need to give them cues and you need to make them feel interested in it. And that is very, very important. When you make it way too abstract for a customer to relate to it, at this point, I would definitely like to say, I think Indian retail is challenging from that front because I think you definitely want people to see and quickly identify with it. The more abstract it gets, I think you would not be able to have your tier 2, your tier 3 cities actually relate to it. So from that front, it's very important that you keep thinking of your design and not just think of that piece of inspiration that you've probably seen and you want to just go with it. The analysis part is really, really important when we come to it. I think over the years, I think this is something one of the customers said. They stopped at the window, they saw the window, they came in, they saw the first table, and luckily I got to have a chat with them, and they said, yeah, I'm done. I said, but you came in because you saw the window. He said, yeah, the window was interesting, but your store is boring. And I said, I didn't understand. He said, the story stops at the window. So I think customers want to see the story across. They just don't want to see a trailer. They don't want to see the store. So it doesn't end with that. When he enters, it's very, very important that he sees the story across. And when I say the story across, it doesn't mean pretty looking things in the store. It also means how he navigates. He able to walk through. He shouldn't feel intimidated. All of this is something that has to definitely be looked at. Merchandise display, creating through is very important. Now, I think fictionally, I think a lot of visual merchandisers sometimes have challenges because I think, like I told you, the engineer's role, right? You need to know how to put your fixture together. You will have your vendor telling you, okay, this is not going to happen. You need to be able to tell him that this is definitely going to be possible. A nice space to actually tomorrow branch out into probably doing something else with materials. And I think that's why I said it's so diversified that it gives you exposure to a whole lot of things. I want you to kind of have a look at the journey of window called a green window that took among customers. There was this merchandise which fashion designers had come up, a collection, a green collection. And everybody was like, no, you can't have green shirts. People don't wear green shirts and green trousers. People don't wear green blazers. It was something which was really, really new. But I think once the range was presented, people were really keen on seeing how it would translate. Of course, the merchandise was definitely a success. Once we saw samples of it, it was looking great. Now, the challenge comes back to how is this going to make people stop? Am I going to walk down a mall and stop and look at this window just because it has green shirts? No, not really. I need to do something dramatic. Is it the same thing that Van Heusen has been doing for ages, a black or a white window display with green shirts? No, again, it needs to be a showstopper. It needs to be a clutter breaker, something that is very frequently used today because of the number of brands that have come into malls. Clutter breaking is really, really important. So yeah, so this was the mood that we opted for. And finally, this is what happened. So initially, when we had the discussion with the designer, we told him that we're going to make a green maze. He said, green maze, 2 feet window. I mean, how are you going to even figure this out? You're talking about a maze. A maze is beautiful only when you have layers to it, when it is, you know, it's dramatic. And of course, I mean, I was lucky to work with an ex-Ralph Lauren VM head. And he said, have you watched Shining? And there's this really nice green maze in that. And, you know, they keep running around it. But to translate that maze into a window and not lose focus on the merchandise was a tremendous task. And the goal was to make sure the merchandise doesn't get lost and it is clutter breaking. So finally, I think there was a lot of throw of light and this and that. And finally, and the biggest challenge, like I told you, how do you execute this in 600 stores and not get it wrong across the country? I think of looking at that part of it, I would definitely give a lot of credit to people who are there on the floor. Very important that, you know, the students who go into fashion communication, it's not just important for them to just know to design. They need to be able to talk, to convince, to collaborate, to be able to work with different people. I think that's something that I learned through this process. Whether you talk to a vendor, whether you're talking to a manager, all of that plays a huge role, and you tell the story differently for every buyer, right? This was another window that was done for a sub brand during the same time, just to establish consistency across. I've been talking about the in-store aspect. I think when I had done this window in 2018, I think things were very, very different. And when I moved to Max, things took a completely different turn with regard to visual merchandising. Things were so demanding that people not only wanted to see it in the store, they also expected you to connect it back to social media. Now, this is where the challenge comes. Initially, where they only expected static windows, lot of engaging windows right now. And secondly, if I see something in YouTube, when I come back to your store, I don't want to be seeing something totally different. I need to be able to connect back to it. And this is a very, very simple example. You would have seen Puma do it a lot. The Levi's Deepika Padukone ad campaign, which was there in their stores, it was there on their social media. I'm not saying plastering of the same work across mediums, but adapting it, figuring out what sells in which medium. And as much as a marketing team will do it, a visual merchandiser will have to have a keen eye for it to be able to tell the brand consistently across that this is the aesthetics. This has to stay consistent. When my customer sees something on YouTube, he comes to my store, he shouldn't mistake it for another brand. He has to make sure that the brand imagery, the story, everything stays consistent across. So I think that shift has largely happened only because of the customer. It is not just because of the digitalization. It is because there has been a cultural shift. Customers are more aware. Customers read more, they look at more things, they are exposed to international brands. So when they see a H&M in a mall and then they see a Max in a mall, they expect you to go up to that again. But don't be mistaken that, there was this experiment that we did where we did a lifestyle window, similar looking window in Max, because the management felt that, it wasn't looking like lifestyle. We had 10 customers tell us, हमें lifestyle के अंदर नहीं जाना है, Max के अंदर जाना है, so please don't change it. So you need to understand your customer is directing you on some level, and visual merchandising cannot just stay at the store. It's going to become experiential. Brick and mortar stores will never die, but they will definitely have to up their game with making it a lot more experiential, and that will be the shift in the role for a visual merchandiser. So yeah, Meha, so thanks a lot for the opportunity, but yeah, that's pretty much it.
Shruti, in fact, I should say that, it's taking fish to water, you coming to academics and teaching also students. You have been amazing. And it's a learning for, again, as I said, that each one of you has shared so much today that there are so many takeaways from this session. However, I have two questions, please. I'll not have everyone in the spotlight here, but at least two of you to answer a question. One, of course, I want to ask Asmita. Asmita, tell me, we've been, with magazines, and especially you have been someone who's been a voracious reader and goes through 5,000 word article. Where do you see, what is the future of a magazine?
Well, Aparna made a very relevant point, which I have to concede, that, we are all here because of digitalization, right? So I think digitalization is going to be a big component of magazines. However, there's a disclaimer there that, pure form of writing, long form of writing, purest form of magazine writing, if you see, there's a whole parallel universe of writing that has started to take place, and there are a lot of seismic changes within this, with interesting magazines which are fashion but also intellectual, like Another, Dazed and Confused, Kinfolk, Gentle Women, My Favorite Tank. There's this whole new genre of magazines which focus on fashion but have a very intellectual, and I would say a very interesting approach to fashion. So that is going to be the future of fashion. Motherland in India, Platform in India, those kind of magazines. I think sorry to say, but the Vogues of the world are going to face a lot of problems. They're going to be the next Victoria's Secret. They're going to just fade away because they are not relevant to modern times. Modern women want to watch a play. They want to read a book. They want to go out for a drink with their friends. They want to talk about politics. They want to talk about culture. They are just not about looking good. So I think when the magazines refuse to see this new woman who's a new bride, like I see these lot of changes in couture magazines, because I launched a couture magazine, Bridal Asia. I also worked with L'Officiel Couture magazine. The new bride is a boxer. She's a makeup artist. She's a stylist. She's a gym enthusiast. So she is looking at fashion from a completely different perspective. And that's what fashion magazines are going to mirror now. And that's going to be the future of magazines and fashion communication, I think, embracing those changes within the space of fashion, the new parallel universe.
Thank you. Thank you. Interesting. In fact, Shruti, of course, spoke about how vision merchandising is going to be for the future. Even Aparna is learning how to actually digitize her illustrations and get on NFTs, and maybe she'll have bitcoins also. She's learning that from students. But I want to ask Ashish, who's a fashion filmmaker also, where do you see fashion films going now in this time when we are talking about NFTs, when fashion designers are making clothes which don't exist? What are we going to do with fashion films? How is this NFT and the cryptocurrency talk and everything going to impact that?
Okay, so at the moment, very frankly speaking, uh, the answer is the true answer is the frank answer is we don't know about it. We don't have a clue at the moment as to what we are teaching the students right now. Is it going to be relevant in another 5 years or 10 years? At the moment, we don't have a curriculum or a syllabus to teach students as to what they are supposed to do in terms of jobs in another 6 years, 7 years. So that's the first thing. Because the world is moving into virtual, alternate, mixed reality, augmented reality. I know there are skeptics who would say that no, this is not going to happen. It's just some kind of a fad. That's what people said when the first mobile phones came. They said, I mean, why do you require a mobile phone? There's a post box, there's a post office. You can just go and post letters. And in the end, you can just book a trunk call. But there are two things I would want to emphasize here. You cannot live with your smartphone. That's the first thing. And secondly, if you're going in a metro and you're just scrolling something very innocently, maybe it's just the news, and there's a passenger nearby and that person wants to see what you're looking at, you suddenly get so annoyed because this mobile phone is part of your personal space. You're looking something at very, very innocent. You're just looking perhaps at the weather. But this, you simply mind people if they touch your phone, despite the fact that the phone is locked. Okay, and 20 years ago, people said that this is not the future. At the moment, people are saying metaverse is not the future. But my own take is, I'm coming to the specific question that Meha has asked. So what's going to happen in the future? This is what a lot of people have said. One is the metaverse, one is mixed reality, and Elon Musk is working on Neuralink. So you have a chip, they plant it in your brain, and it usually starts, these things basically start from for medical or these kind of reasons or for defense reasons. But it's just a matter of time that somebody programs this chip and puts it in your head. So another 15 years, 20 years, perhaps parents will be asking each other as to what is your child got embedded. My child has got this particular brand because it has got National Geographic Discovery and these kind of magazines embedded in it. So somebody will say, oh, only that much. This one also has got coding, etc. So another 30 years, 40 years, it is quite possible. It's not in realms of fantasy that you can actually pre-program a human being so that when the person is 10 years old or 5 years old or 6 years old, you don't have to make that person learn in a traditional way like we have learned, the long form way. Okay, that's a future. Maybe it's frightening, but coming back to directly as to what is the future of fashion films, etc. Now, the best part about fashion films is this is something you can make in a very economical sense. It doesn't take a lot of money for you to produce these films. It is something you can use it to express yourself. You can mix mediums, you can create music. So it's experimental, it's abstract, it's a form of expression. So this is not going. Now the only question is whether the fashion films are going to be 2D like we see it on Instagram, or it's going to be in the mixed reality in metaverse. Well, that time will tell. But these are not going anywhere.
Thanks. And Sarita has raised a hand. Are you asking about the brand that you want to embed in Samruddhi, your daughter?
No, in fact, it was fantastic. And I have to say, so many thoughts are racing through my mind. I'm sorry, I know you have a time constraint, but I want to quickly add, and this I want to share from my own experience. Asmita, congratulations. And I couldn't agree more with you when you say that, you need to be a reader to be a writer. And I am seeing that at home in my house. My daughter is a voracious reader and she is a content creator, and she's writing a dissertation of influence of fashion in films as we speak. So I heard so much from all of you. Shruti, I think visual merchandising, you have to be the Durgeshwari Sutradhar. There is no other way to explain it. Because I've been on the other side. I totally understand when you say marketing takes all the credit, because I was a part of content marketing at Pantaloons a little while ago. And but I think what I want to really say to your answer, about what Ashish also said about what we want to teach our students. I think from my own experience, and I'm sure all of you sitting here in this panel will agree, that we have to teach our students on the openness to adapt. We have to teach our students the openness to acclimatize and to say that, yes, I'm willing to learn. I have done it in my career over 30 years. Every new career phase of mine was something I had never done before. As long as you're open to learning and learning on the job, you're never too old or too young to say, oh my God, I don't know, or I don't think I will fit into this. If you have the open mind to say that I'm willing to give it a shot, क्या होगा ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा? सीख मिल जाएगी. They will say, okay, you're fired. All right, ठेस पहुंचेगी थोड़ी बहुत, but क्या learning होगा? Fantastic. And believe me, it nothing of that sort happens. You just go from strength to strength. And the most important thing is we need to teach our students on the application of current knowledge. Currency is the most important thing in my opinion. And I have coined this word for myself, which is, always about being mindful about nowness. It is in the now, because today, we are on a platform online having this discussion. Tomorrow, and Ashish, to your point, you were talking about embedding chips. I already know a friend, and I cannot reveal the company, but I know somebody who has already coded a chip for blind people to insert it in their brain, so that the blind person knows that, okay, few steps from here he has to turn left or right on the street, and that chip is linked to his cane. That coding is already happened. It's probably at a research application stage. So we are not too far from what you're saying, rightly so, medical now and commercial later in no time. So maybe that will happen, but maybe we'll go back. Maybe we'll go back to sifting between, as Asmita said, the Vogue will become, go the Victoria's Secret way, but we will learn to sift between what is working for you, how you want to make it work for you. And I think that's where communication is also so important, to realize how I can make it work for myself and for where I am. So I just couldn't resist, but felt the need to say this. So yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for listening, and over to you, Neha.
Yeah. No, so thank you. I would like to invite our council member, Dr. Monisha. Dr. Monisha, over to you before the vote of thanks. Monshi, is Dr. Monisha here?
No, ma'am.
Okay, all right. Okay, so thank you so much. And in fact, it was just lovely listening to each one and connected with so many people at different level. Like Sarita, I think we are connecting after so many years, and again discussing so many things that we have enriched our lives with. Thank you, Ashish, Shruti, and Aparna. Amazing speakers you are. You this award that you are a eminent media educator. So thank you so much. Thank you each one of you for making this panel so interesting. Lovely discussions that we had, and thank you everyone for patience today and listening of us. I would like to also thank Professor KG Suresh, Professor Ujjwal Chaudhary, who are actually the brains behind and people who have conceptualized this Global Media Educators Council. We have this concept of the 75-day conference. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. And Monshri, thank you so much. She was working together, all the creatives, the technicals. Thank you very much, Monshri. You have been a great help. Bye, everyone, and good night.
Good night. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much, Neha. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye.